see people coming on. That's awesome. Hi there. This is exciting. Hi there. I am so glad everybody is popping on right now. I'm gonna give others a couple more minutes. Excuse me one quick second here. My name is Bernadette Pleasant, and I am so excited to share today. It is such an honor to be here. Savia is going to be coming in here in a moment, I think. So I'm just going to entertain you a little bit in the meantime. What a powerful time we are living in. What a powerful, powerful time this is. And opportunities to dig deeper, to get still, get angry, get all the things. It's a potent and powerful time. Right. I think I get started here. I want to honor your time. I want to honor your time well, and I think I jump right in here. I see the numbers are growing, so I'm going to give this 60 more seconds. So please breathe with me, breathe deeply with me. Feel your feet on the ground, whatever surface you are on, whether you are sitting or standing. Connect to your body, move something, move something. Feel breath moving in and out of your body, and do some sort of stretch, stretching the fascia, moving, waking up, saying hello to the left side and the right side of your body. So much wisdom lives in this body, and we're going to talk about somatics and what is possible in the body and what information lives there. And most of that information happens without us doing a thing. But when we move, Oh my God. That's a whole nother experience happening when we actually move our bodies and do something. So right now I'm going to invite you to move your bodies, to stretch, maybe stretch farther and wider than you have today. Think of a body part that maybe you have not stretched. Imagine stretching along the side body, reaching out, moving both sides, lingering there for a minute, allowing your hands to come onto body. I am a big fan of touch, healing touch. The best healing comes from your own hand and then connecting with another. Oh my God. It's good. It is needed. Squeeze, touch, and do it again. Okay. We are going to move into this conversation. I have the honor, the distinct honor of discussing grief. I say honor because grief is something that lives in the body. It lives in our bodies for a plethora of reasons. There are so many ways in which grieving takes place. What we know about it, what we don't know about it, what we find shame or resistance to about it, all these many things. And why is it necessary? Why is it avoided? And maybe you don't avoid it. Maybe you go right there and damn, that's good. That's so good, because it is good for our bodies, our psyche, to feel this very real experience and move it through our bodies. What's important to know is why we may not have welcomed in this emotion, why we shut it down, why we can't have that fear of going over an edge, fear of never coming back, fear of fear, all kinds of things. It's too much. I don't want to be that crying person. I don't want to be that. I want to be strong. Shit like that. My people, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. I see the numbers are just coming on in, so I feel like I should give this just a couple more seconds. Please bear with me. I am grateful to be here and new to this platform. So I've noticed that from the time I got on the call, 80 more people have come on. So I am going to take a moment and give that more time. You know, I love that I just said, give that more time. Something that is very present for me is the art of being still and waiting, noticing, living in the pause, the moments between the breaths. Noticing what happens when we get real still. Noticing the information that gets delivered, that can only get delivered when we get really quiet and still. I'm going to invite you to ground with me. Spread your toes, wiggle them if you can. If you're wearing shoes and you can kick them off and you're open to it, Let them go. Allow those fingers to move like this and allow your toes to follow suit. Press the balls of your feet, the soles of your feet, and those heels deep into the earth, into the ground that holds you. Yeah, yes. Allow them to be heavy. Feel the outer edges of each foot and then slowly roll to the inner soles so that you are moving on to the insides and the outsides of your feet. I like to do this while repeating the mantra, I am here. I am here. Here on this planet in this time and all that kind of stuff, but here meaning right now in this present moment. I am right here. There's a space between our toe beds and the ball of the foot. It's where the toes curl right in there. Try to press that into the earth. Try to press that area right in. Again, spreading those toes and allowing them to wiggle, crunching them, spreading them wide. I like to consider breathing between the spaces of my toes. Feels good. Do that again. The feet, the hands that touch the earth. I always am encouraging people to be barefoot, which is why I'm taking these socks off. I encourage people to be barefoot. Our feet take in so much information. It is important to do that just for the health of your feet. That's another topic, another day. We have hit 100. I think that is a beautiful time for me to just get in here and talk to you. I've been leading these grief rituals, these sacred grief rituals, and they have been incredible. During this time, I thought there would be a need for people to gather together without any agenda, not trying to fix anyone's situation, knowing that everybody had their own set of challenges, whatever they were. Physical illness, fear of uncertainty, angry about things, hurtful things that have happened to people, that continue to happen to people that look like us, that are encased in this brown body. The way we're looked at as if we need additional shit right now during this time of health concerns, and how those things that are affecting our populations a little differently than others. I decided to do something that would only be done in person, virtually. I know, novel, right? Everybody's doing that. But this was necessary. So this call gets set up, and I don't know how many people to expect. You know, I've never done this virtually, and I just put out this information about a container being created for people to come and grieve. Had an agenda in mind, and I thought, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 people show up. I soon learned that a basic Zoom classroom can only hold 100. I found that out the hard way that day. More people came to the call than I imagined. it was a beautiful experience to have people show up to grieve, to show up to grieve. Most people, when they are grieving something, they want to do anything but be seen. We want to pull the covers up over our head, shrivel up, get small, get really quiet, cry in the shower, or do so in a way that others aren't affected by our grief. And what I mean by that is not sharing the experience, not saying, hey, I'm sad, I'm grieving. So often, people in general, and people of color in particular, have a way of putting that somewhere, putting it somewhere neat, trying to tuck it away. Hurt, pain, grief. Putting that away as opposed to giving it its just due. I want to speak to why putting it away and shoving it somewhere, burying it, doesn't work. The thing about burying these very alive emotions is that we only bury them alive. And when you bury something alive, it comes up in very interesting ways. Anger, being sarcastic all the time, sleepless nights, digestive issues, you name it. Illnesses start to creep in, a uneasiness about our way of being, very much alive. It is important to give every emotion we are feeling its just due. I often say that I believe that emotions are like weather. I don't call them negative. There's a quote that there are no good, bad, light or dark emotions, only emotions that need to be fully expressed. That's my quote. That's my belief system. I'm not interested in shaming emotions. I have seen the havoc it wreaks on my body. I've seen the havoc it wreaked on the bodies of my mother, my aunties, my grandmother. And I know they learned that. We are conditioned to do less, not shine more, not be big in our emotions, be that our anger or confidence or joy even, but in particular, grief. Wipe the tears. Don't be such a crybaby. Man up. Strong Black women. All of it tamps down this very real thing that lives in our bodies. And a way that I have been looking at emotions in the way that I am going to encourage you to do so has certainly helped me and people I've worked with. And that is, let's just imagine that the emotions that we experience, rather than shame them, find them wrong, dress them up, doctor them, all that stuff. How about we just view them like we do weather? Sunny day, bright day. Here's your joy right there. Little upset, clouds, angry, storm. Depending on your anger, shit, it might be an earthquake. Sometimes there's a tsunami. All of it is warranted. You know, as long as we do this thing called life, the weather's going to change. But just like you perhaps did today, because I did, it is 76 degrees out here in New Jersey, where I am. And I know that weather, so I know what to put on. I know what I can go outside, what I need to have on my body. Yesterday, it was hot and sunny, and so I put on a little less. Tomorrow it might rain. I'm just going to pack an umbrella, and I might put on something, you know, little sleeves to cover out. What I'm saying here is that if we just viewed our emotions as weather, we accept it as it comes without trying to shut it down, because it's here and it changes. And yes, it's okay to like certain weather more than the other, but it's all weather. Just an interesting view, and I invite you to consider how you're feeling as weather. Just accept it as it is. I think what happens when we do that is that we've become really okay with who we are and how we're feeling, and we don't try to dress it up and say, I'm fine, I'm great, I'm strong, I'm pushing through. All those things that are these ways of dealing or not dealing. Let's just look at it, call it what it is. What would it be like to, rather than tell someone that you're fine, telling them your truth? I think it starts by telling oneself their truth. I've learned to tell when I'm angry to just say, you know, I'm pissed off. I'm really pissed off about something. Being angry just meant that there was some injustice that I felt needed to be called out. Grieving just means I dared to desire something. I wanted a different outcome. I didn't get that. So I'm sad about that. Rather than saying I'm fine, I'm okay, how about we just be honest with ourselves first and then with others? I think what happens when we do that is that we actually are seen more as real human beings as opposed to robots. And whoever you have had an interaction with that you've been honest with, now this person feels that they too can take that risk of being honest and not giving one of those blanket responses to something that doesn't matter. But I want to talk more about the body and emotions right now, and the emotion particularly of grief. When I mentioned that phone call that happened, and we've done 3 now, we're doing another in a couple of weeks, but it was, and I've widened up the room because more people come in there, and we invite people to stay on camera or go off camera, or, you know, just be there. There's something called Grief Study Hall. We talk about why grieving is important. Sabamfu Somé, if you're not familiar with her, oh my God, you want to get familiar with her. Sabamfu Somé is this amazing woman from Burkina Faso. And she came to California some years ago. She's passed now. She's no longer with us in physical body. But when she came here, she looked for, she was grieving. She was grieving. And one day she looks around and she just says, you know, there is nothing in place here for grief. Y'all just don't do it, as if, you know, there was nothing to do for it. We had tissues to wipe our eyes. We didn't have systems. We didn't have any ritual around this. And she said that, you know, basically this explains a lot in terms of behaviors here, but where she was from, they had a tradition and they honored grief. And she started to teach that ritual here. And I have had the honor of attending these rituals. Sabampu wanted these rituals to be shared. These rituals that were from this African tribe where she was from, she'd come here and share what they did. And in this ritual, oh my God, I've never experienced anything like it. And I do grief work. But this here, this required community. It was not done privately. It wasn't to fix your situation. They weren't telling stories about what you're grieving and regurgitating the problem and keeping the cycle going. They had a way of creating a container that just allowed your tears to fall, your sounds to come out of your body, whatever it is. Maybe it's not tears. Maybe for someone else, it's just howling or crying or screaming, shouting out whatever needed to come. The way you prostrated your body, whatever that was for you. And there was just ritual around this, and it was done with community. It was done with live drums. And those djembes played, and the song was sang, and it was sang, and it was sang for hours on end. The same song. And the ritual was beautiful and rich. Of course it was. That is not what I do on the call with these people, but this work was to be shared. Sabampu knew how important it was for us to grieve. So my question is, do you grieve? Do you allow for grief? Do you make space for it? Do you welcome it when grief shows up? When the weather has shifted and it's a cloudy day, for whatever reason it is. Is there allowance for this time, or is there shame around that time? Do you allow yourself to have tears? Do you allow yourself to be with the emotion of grief? I see the question, what is this person's name? Sabampu Somé. I'm going to Sobonfu. Her last name Somé, S-O-M-E. Sabampu's husband is Malidoma Somé. He is still alive, is her ex-husband. He is still alive and still doing this grief work. I'll be putting some information in the chat about that. So yeah, resistance to grief, and lots of reasons why we'd be resistant to grief. There are plenty of reasons. We're not taught to grieve. We're not taught. You know, babies are shushed. It is a conditioning. You know, babies cry when something isn't right. Children are taught to not cry. And that's a very subtle way. It's like they're told, you're okay. That didn't hurt so much when you fell, and so on. Now, I'm not a big fan of a wailing child, but this is one of those things that is subtle. We are uncomfortable with tears. I want to read a quote by Sabamfu. It says, when we do not allow ourselves to release emotions, we allow ourselves to harbor negative emotions. When we cry, we are inviting life back into our bodies. When we cry, we are inviting life back into our bodies. Crying is seen as something that makes people uncomfortable, that we want to shut down, not have. Crying can be, throughout history, it's been considered like somebody who was hysterical was someone who was crying. Someone who was not in control of her emotions or their emotions, and so emotions needed to be controlled. And so there are many ways that grief is looked at, shamed, given a very short, limited timeline, and then we need to move on. It's not very real. It's not a realistic approach. And I want to talk about why it's not a realistic approach specifically to people of color. Grief there are gateways of grief, and I want to talk about the 5 gateways of grief. The gateways. The first gateway of grief is that everything we love, we will lose. This is, of the 5 gateways, this is the only one that there's even a little information around in terms of like how we deal with this in our societies. Everything we love, we'll lose. People, relationships, jobs, homes. Something that we love, that we fear losing. There is a understanding that if you're in relationship, there's a fear that it could break up, that it could end. When we birth our children, there's a concern always about their safety, particularly people of color. We have a whole different set of circumstances to be concerned about their well-being and how they're viewed and seen. Fear of losing. We know how to say, sorry for your loss. And that's what I mean by it. This is the one gateway that there's even an attempt to understand that kind of grief. The second gateway of grief, the places in ourselves that have not known love. The parts of ourselves that were never accepted, whatever that is. The fact that you might be considered too much. You're too loud. So now your voice has no place to be. You're too Black. So now, how do I get to show up when this part of me isn't accepted? The places that have not known love. It could be enthusiasm about something. You're an exuberant, joyous person, and you need to tamp down that joy because other people can't handle it. Or perhaps you're queer and you can't, your sexuality, who you be, is not seen. Anything that is a part of you and who you are and is not accepted, there exists grief around not being able to have that full acceptance and expression and celebration by others. The third gateway, sorrow for the world, for the planet. I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't even know where to begin with that, but I mean, it's we see things, whether we've contributed to it by, some people carry grief around the fact that they feel like they might have contributed to the ocean's issues with littering or not recycling. There are things that are affecting global warming and just things that are so out of control because it affects the planet. It seems too big to deal with. Like I'm one person, how can I affect that? There's grief for the house that's our home that we live in, and watching the changes that happens with that. And there's so many, I'm just naming a few. That's the third gateway. The fourth gateway, what we expected and did not receive. Touches a little bit on the second gateway, but this is different. And this one in particular, I want to speak to people of color with this one. To be seen and heard and celebrated by the tribe. To feel there's this part of us that knows that we were to be received, celebrated, songs sang, dances made, that there was community to celebrate us, to celebrate our birth, to celebrate the significant things that happen in our lives that just welcomed us from day to day, that had grief rituals, these rich things that make us who we are. This gateway can be something that one's never experienced and somehow longed for the thing that they never even, like, how can I grieve the thing I don't even know? That's what that gateway is. I didn't receive that, but somehow I know that that was meant to happen for me. The fifth gateway, ancestral grief. Ancestral grief. Ancestral grief is grief that lives in our DNA. It is grief that lives in the body, the sorrows that are passed on. There's something that about this one, I often think about my grandmother, Edith Pleasant. My grandmother was a large woman. She was big in personality. She was big in posture. And she loved in a big way. My grandmother would speak to me like she wanted and knew that I was capable of bigness. What I remember though is I would hear her words and she meant them. But I would also see in her eyes, there was fear. I couldn't put my finger on what that was. As a child, I would see this sort of, I don't know, like it was, I want you to do this. I want you to live into your voice. I want you to speak and get in front of people and do this thing. But I always saw this thing, but not too much. I'm a little concerned of what that looks like and feels like. Perhaps she was concerned about my safety. I actually think she was concerned that I might believe I could do things, and she didn't want me to be disappointed. My grandmother saw things that I never could imagine happening. She saw these, she lived these things. She told me the stories. She wanted better for me, and yet in her being, there was concern whether I'd be disappointed, hurt. So I saw that ancestral thing lived in her eyes. That kind of thing, I can't forget that. I can't forget that. And so I want to ask of you to think, are we going into the portion of, okay, I'd like for you to consider the gateways of grief. I'll list them again. I want to talk about these gateways, and I want you to consider, maybe just drop down a line or two of how these gateways, how they live in your life, and feel free to share or start a journal about these gateways. And there's one more that I want to mention, and that sometimes there's grief that we have no idea what it is. Grief doesn't have to have a title. It belongs cleanly in this section or gateway number 2 or gateway number 3. Sometimes grief is something you can't put your finger on. I don't know why I feel like this today. Have you ever waken up like that? A sense of melancholy? Yeah. What I'd like for you to consider when you are feeling grief, and we're going to go into an exercise portion, but I'm going to just jot those again very briefly, the titles. 5 gateways. 1 is that everything we love, we will lose. The places in ourselves, the things about ourselves that have not known love. Sorrow for the world or planet. That's the 3rd. The 4th, what we expected and did not receive. And the 5th, ancestral grief. I really love for you to consider these things. And then of course there's the unknown, just the complete unknown. And what will be my desire around these things is when you are experiencing these griefs, that you are patient with yourself, that you are gentle, that you are the loving parent to your own emotions, and just say, oh, I see you. There's no rush. I want you to tell your grief to take all the time it needs. There's a beautiful, very beautiful saying, and that is asking grief. It's not a saying, I'd like for you to think about grief this way. Just asking the grief whenever you feel it, how much time do you need? That is something that I really appreciate, considering that perspective. How much time do you need? Do you need more time? Have you grieved enough? If we look at things with this tender eye and with this sweetness, I think a lot more healing happens. Imagine a wound. If you scrape your arm and you're like, all right, damn it, I ain't got time for this. I need you healed. I need the skin to be restored. I need to know that this is done. I don't have time for the process. You don't do that when you hurt yourself, when you have scraped your arm, your knee, whatever it is. There's a process so that it becomes whole again. Our wounds deserve that process. Our internal wounds deserve that process. So my desire would be that you are practicing a new layer, a new level of patience around grief. Other people have ways of dealing with grief. It doesn't work for us. I mentioned Malidoma Somé. Malidoma Somé has a quote, and it says, as long as we are not ourselves, we will try to be what other people are. As long as we are not ourselves, we will try to be what other people are. We are people who come from lineage that honors grief. The Dagara tribe, where Sabamfu and Malidoma are from, they practiced this. They said that there was always a grief ritual going on somewhere in the tribe. A grief ritual is something I look forward to holding in person, creating that container when we are able to commune again. I can't take that ritual and adapt it to a virtual platform. I can't do that. It requires different. What I can do is create containers in this virtual world that honors grief. But that ritual, no, it wasn't designed for this. But how will you create that for yourself? That's the question here. How will you be more patient with yourself? How will you honor grief? In my classrooms, I often tell people when we're dealing with different emotions, like, place your hand. Where are you feeling it right now? So right now, I'm going to invite you to just consider what you may be grieving. And it could be something that fits squarely into one of these gateways. These gateways are really just an outline. As we start to work with this grief, realizing what we grieve and how we grieve. There's this structure here, but if you just close your eyes for a moment and just think grief. Allow your hand to find the place where you are grieving. Feel the comfort of your hand right there. And say to yourself, quietly or in a whisper, whatever feels good to you, like, I see you. For me right now, it's in my high heart. I feel my high heart grieve. Speak to that body part of yours. Be understanding, be gentle, be kind. How might you speak to this body part? I see you For me, it's high heart. I see you, high heart. Fill in the blank for yourself. I will be patient with you. Of course, there is grief. And speak to the reasons why. I see and feel my high heart. I feel its challenge. I feel its weightedness. It's weighty. I'm ready to go outside. I don't want to do it with a mask. I've worn enough masks, like many people here on this call, in my lifetime. There are people walking past my window right now. They are wearing masks. They are wearing the physical mask. People are having to put on a physical mask. But what about the masks you had to wear that weren't physical? The ones that you hid behind for whatever reason, the ones that caused you to contort yourself so that you could fit into someone else's box. The masks that were worn when Maladoma references that when we, as long as we are not ourselves, we will try to be what others are. In what ways have you worn the proverbial mask? Have you done it in your household? Have you done it with your partner, with your children, with co-workers and others? Have you worn the mask and tried to hide from yourself? I did. And what was that like? Creating a dialogue and being able to talk about grief, about emotions, about the mask and not wearing it, choosing not to wear it anymore. It's a big deal. I believe that we don't heal in isolation, but only in community. So I invite dialogue, I invite conversations, I invite blog posts, newsletters, whatever it is, any way that causes something to get out of our bodies. Moving the body. In my live experiences, and even those these days that are done virtually, I bring in those live African drums. And I'm going to tell you, the reason I bring them in is because they are live skins. They move with us. They pull more out of our bodies. Our limited minds will try to shut it down and say that's enough. And the drums just kind of keep digging. They keep getting in there, excavating, pulling out what needs to be exposed. I invite that through movement and through sound. So I'm going to invite you to move your body with me. Stand up. I'm going to imagine you're doing this. So don't have me in on this party by myself. But wherever you are, whatever posture you can take up, what would it be like to move our body, to say, like, wherever that was that you were grieving? For me, it was my high heart. What would it be like to give that body part expression, to allow it to move, to imagine it a color? Do whatever is necessary to put your attention on it. I feel you, I see you. How do you need to move right now? The reason why it's important to move, our bodies want to get stuck and small. When that happens, especially in grief and in anger, it starts to seep in. It starts to make us sick. It starts to attack the body, our psyche, and it starts to affect us in a physical way. Have you ever met somebody, I'm going to talk about, I said a physical way, but also there's some people are just bitter all the damn time. that is for me, when I'm working with someone, when I see that, and that's why I mentioned sarcasm. When there isn't a way to, in a healthy way, express ourselves or be seen in tribe and community, in circles that are safe, it can start to just take over in a way that isn't so healthy. So I invite you to move and make sound, literally make sound. What sound does that body part of yours need to get out? For me, it's often a growl or a yell or a howl or whatever. What I've learned to do is move that body part, allow that body part to be the start, the impetus that creates movement through my body, not dance necessarily. I mean, we go to dance, and that's all right. That's all right. But this is about healing movement, and the reason why it needs to move throughout our bodies, out our mouths. I mention mouths because it is important to give it sound. So often we are shut down right here. How does it feel? How does it sound? I'm told it's time for Q&A, so I am happy. I am so happy to have shared with you, and I open this up for any questions that need to come in. I welcome them. What an honor it has been. Oh, I appreciate reading that this has helped me realize that I've been feeling grief the past couple of days and I didn't realize it. Yeah, it's, we don't have a whole lot of vocabulary around grief. Grief was limited. I want to speak to that, and I'm so glad that was placed there. The very definition of grief is, where did I put that? The very definition is great sorrow, especially caused by someone's death. When we were talking about the gateways of grief, the only one that referenced losing something was gateway number 1. There were 4 other gateways, not to mention the grief that we just can't even put our hands on. I can't put our finger on that thing. So if this is how grief is defined, so much is left out. So much is left out. And so it doesn't get a place to be. If we aren't calling something by its name, naming it, saying, I have it, I see you, you're right there. It feels like this in my body, and I want to be able to talk about it. Yeah, we don't even know what that is. So I hear you. Any other questions you want to share? I welcome it all. Let's see. I love to clarify. I love the clarity of the 5 gateways. Does that come from a specific course or tradition? It's not from a specific, it actually is. There's someone who is noted as doing the 5 gateways. It's something that I've learned in some grief work, and I know that more than one person has created the gateways. Someone has, there's someone who says there's 7 gateways. Primarily, there are 5 gateways of grief, and that is different from the stages of grief. These are the gateways, and I'm going to get that information for you because I want to answer you. Take a look at Jenny Dupree. That's Jenney. I should be typing this in the chat. I'm not really that savvy with this. But yeah, take a look at JennyDeupree.com for more information on the 5 gateways of grief. Thanks for asking. Oh, thank you, beloved. I have been weeping through the whole hour. Oh, your tears, they are welcome here. Lisa, they are welcome here. Grief is right there and only wants the invitation. Yes, Lisa, I see you. And I want to say and respond to that grief is love with nowhere to go. Grief is love with nowhere to go. So acknowledge that thing. Like the weather we mentioned early in the call when we were talking about viewing our emotions as weather, grief is not your final destination. It, just like rain, is not going to be raining for eternity. The weather will shift. Your work to do is to acknowledge that you have it, give it the space. Notice its temperature. I want you to put your focus on it. I see you, I feel you. Let's do some things. Let's give you what you need. What we're not doing is saying, heal right now, damn it. I ain't got time for this. That we don't do. It's a process. It's a loving process. It's a loving process. I was once told that tears are liquid gratitude. So there's something that there was gratitude for. Didn't end up the way you wanted necessarily. And sometimes grief just comes from overwhelm. But be patient with it, yourselves with it. Thank you, Lisa. I'm loving it. It would help to see others here. Are there 3 of us, or 200 or 500? There are 104. Yeah, it would help to be connected to a group. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, please send me a message. I will share information regarding the next grief ritual that I'll be hosting. I can be found at info@livefemme, that's LIVEFEMME.com. Looking forward to assisting and helping. Yeah, the loss of connection. Losing connection with people. We are meant to be in connection with people. I mean, we thrive in connection. So during this time, there is a loss of connection. Our connections tend to be virtual at best right now. The death of people you love. I mean, I hear you and see you. I feel that pain, misunderstandings, and hurt during the time of isolation. Yeah, this isolation time has brought up so much, and it needs to be discussed. I am grateful for a forum like this where, as best we can, we are leaning into that and just saying, yeah, I'm feeling some things and it's not pleasant. Yeah. Mm. Can I speak to number 3 more? Sorrow for the world, the planet, the ecosystem, global warming, what's happening in our oceans, and those are just that gateway. Sorrow is for how our planet, the health of our planet. Thanks for asking. But that is just it for some, that just feels so big. Like, how can I help with the oceans? How can little old me, yes, I can separate my things for recycling, but what I'm seeing happening in the world, the weather I'm experiencing as a result of that, climate change and things like that, it's speaking to the planet, and how seeing the planet not thrive, how that creates there's grief around that, because for generations to come, we're wondering what's going to be the case for them because of this planet not being healthy. Thanks, V. I hope that helped more on number 3. Uh, I've been focusing on ancestral grief and how it's played in my life, especially with my depression and anxiety and my need to be perfect. Yes. Oh my gosh. Sabia, I want to speak to that. Sabia, I want to speak to that. The need to be perfect. There's a story I used to, it's true. My grandmother, who I adored, she's no longer with us, but my grandmother used to make a coconut pie. And she would grate the coconut and just make this amazing coconut pie. I miss her and that pie. My grandmother lived at this point in her life, she lived in a garden apartment on the second floor. My grandmother would get in her car with coconuts and she would drive somewhere to a quiet side street, open the car, and crack the coconut on the side of, like on a curb. I didn't know what she was doing. It didn't make sense to me. And I remember asking her, like, why don't you just crack the coconut? Like, I didn't understand. My grandmother was afraid of drawing attention to herself. She didn't want neighbors to think something else was happening. So, and it seems crazy, but this was very real to her. She did not want to draw attention. She was afraid of taking up too much space and what people would think. This is the same person who was telling me to be big, be expansive. And that's what I meant by that fear I would see in her eyes. Like she wasn't quite living what she wanted me to do. And I didn't appreciate it. I was young and I just didn't appreciate it. And I know I just asked some flippant question about why, but I appreciate and understand her more now. She was conditioned as large a person as she was, and she was this magnificent being. She was afraid to crack the coconuts, afraid of what people would think. That perfectionism, I would say, for so long, I couldn't get anything done. I couldn't write the blog post. I vacillated back and forth between everything that needed to be done. And I kept saying, I'm trying to get it right, trying to get it right. What I didn't do, what I realized is I wasn't trusting enough to just have fun with it. Fuck it. I posted something earlier today. I was like, oh man, it's got typos in it. And go back. There was a time when I would have beat myself up about that. Now, I have learned to just think, I'm so adorable. Let me go back and fix this. It's just not that serious. And that is something I've learned. I just celebrated turning 55 years old on Monday. And I will say, the 50s made a difference. They used to talk about that, but it's a thing. Trust me on that. Can I repeat the third gateway? I think we got that in. It is sorrow for the world, planet, ecosystems. Yeah, you heard Margaret saying she heard Malidoma Somé tapes and never forgot the wisdom. I'm going to encourage that you look for Sabamfu Somé's books. Look her up on YouTube. It's beautiful to hear her talk about grief. And I tend to find, I follow Sabamfu more so than Malidoma, but both are speaking very similar things. Thank you. Thank you. It is blessed to be here. Oh, wonderful. Simone Baker, thank you so much for mentioning that. I'm so glad you enjoy both of those healers. They are truly amazing. A friend died this morning. Margaret, I see you. It says, a friend died this morning. Your teaching is so timely and so welcome. I am so grateful to hear this. I am so sorry. I am deeply sorry for that loss. I'm wondering how you will take care of yourself with this loss. Will you give yourself the patience? I trust that you will honor yourself and the love you have for this friend, knowing that grief is because there's an outcome that we had not hoped for. And yes, sometimes it is the loss of someone physically. I am so sorry. And because they have transitioned and no longer here, I'm wondering how you will take care of yourself and honor them as you do that. Please feel free to write me privately. I'd love to hold space for you. Yeah, I see the resistant most of the time. Most of the time, there is a resistance to moving and expressing grief. There's a concern that we will get stuck there, just like anger. I work with emotions and moving these things in our bodies. It is important to do this work. I do this in a movement practice with those drums, and it helps to gut this stuff, get it out, pull it out, express it, be seen and heard doing that. My belief is that by doing that, you become more familiar with these emotions, and more than that, you start to have a relationship with them. Oh, yeah, I can see what I'm feeling right now. What I noticed is that emotions, how much time do I have? Because I want to talk. What I got? I'm out of time. Okay. I don't know what to say. I got a lot more to say. Maybe we need to do this again, because I want to talk about the shutdown of joy and grief and rage and lust. What about being turned on and really like, hey, and then you're like, oh, I got to calm that down because I don't want to, or confidence, being concerned that we're going to come across as too full of ourselves, and so putting that in some tiny little package. I'm here for being too much. I have not scratched the surface of what's possible. And my guess is you haven't either. And I think we need to stop living what I call emotionally half-assed lives. It is time to do something different. What do I think is behind the removal of ritual here in the Western world? I don't think it ever existed. And it just makes people uncomfortable. I think people just don't know how to deal with it. And there's a lot of fear around getting stuck, feeling they have to fix it. I can't fix, the sister who just said that she had a loss this morning, I can't change that. I wish I could. I can't change things that have happened. What I can do is notice how I'm feeling about it and not become familiar with this in a way where I don't feel it anymore, numbing out. That is something people say they do a lot of when they are feeling a lot of emotions. They'll say, I'm numb. Numbing is not because numbing happens because you feel so much that like, it's almost like it's protected armor around feeling. Numbing doesn't work. Numbing pushes it off till next week or 2 weeks or longer. It doesn't go anywhere. Numbing lays right underneath the surface, just waiting for the wind to blow, and that baby is coming right out. It's there. So, I'm sorry? No more questions. Okay, I am out of time. This has been amazing. I love this forum. I am so happy to be here, and I look forward to more. I am so grateful to have been invited here to talk. I trust this has been helpful. I would love to create more dialogue. Please, please, please. There's a hand raised. I don't know what to do with that. Hi. Do I do something with that? Come here. Help me. I need help right now. I'm challenged when it comes to these things. No, I don't know what that means. It's Sophia. Okay, we're not sure what to do with that. I'm sorry. So is there something I can, I'm unmuting this, just say hi to y'all. It's not working either. Okay. So I am going to have to bring this to an end. I am so appreciative to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for hosting me. Oh my God, the Black Doula. Loving this audience, loving this topic, and just incredibly grateful to be here. I look forward to more. We'll be sharing our information. Follow us at the emotionalinstitute.com on Instagram and livefem.com. It is such a pleasure. I look forward to more. Be well, be healthy, be fully expressed. Be well.